You can increase the chance of hitting your big goals on a yearly basis if you break them down into smaller chunks every month. I'm going to show you how to build a monthly planner with a space for reflection and ideation, how to add monthly targets and track their progress, and how to add all of those information into your yearly planner or any other dashboard. Let's get started. Okay, so we'll need a space to store all of our monthly plans so that we can easily find, sort, and filter them later on. And we're going to use a full database to achieve that. I'm building mine inside my yearly goals and planner, but you can choose to put your monthly planner into any other databases, views, dashboards, or pages. Okay, so I like to group all my databases in the quick link section here. So /command to create a new page, and then we're going to turn this into a full page database table. And instead of referring to other sources, I'm going to create a brand new one. So let's name this monthly planning. And as usual, I would like to add icons to standardize all my databases. In fact, Notion has recently added the flat icons. So let's choose this calendar here. This way I can easily identify the different pages or databases at the corner there. Oh, I just realized it's not yellow, it's actually orange. Let's change that back. Now we're going to need a few properties to set up our database here. And this name property is always a default. We can just rename that to monthly plan. This is the place where we store all our monthly plans, self-explanatory there. And this tags property, we're going to change this into a date property. Name it date. Let's edit the property type. Instead of multi-select, we're going to change this to date. You can type date if you want to find it faster. So this date property is helping us to set a date range for each of our monthly plan so that we can filter when we design our dashboard to just show certain monthly plans. For example, I can go here to my existing one. I'm grouping by quarter, although it's not exactly the right thing here. I'm going to modify that. But basically, a quarter is 3 months. So Q1 is January to March. I can have another one where it's grouped by quarter 2. So that's April to June, and so on and so forth. So let's hit back to our example database that we're building and move on to the next step. Now, because we're going to create a new monthly plan entry every single month, it's quite repetitive. It's best for us to turn that into a template. So this way we can actually focus all of our mental energy into the actual monthly planning, whether it's reflection, ideation, instead of worrying about where and how to write all of them. To create a template, simply go to this new button right here, click the arrow icon, and then click new template. And then it's going to open up and take whatever information we have in our database and present it in this view. I recommend going to full page so that's easier for us to see. And actually, let's click this 3 dots up here to make it full width. Click this button right here. Much better. Now we have more space to play around with. So what we're going to do next is name this monthly plan. And as usual, I like to give it an icon. Let's stick to the calendar icon so that it's consistent with the monthly plan database icon itself. And one more thing we're going to do is actually set the date. But rather than setting the date manually or to a set date, we're going to do this for today because today is relative. So for example, I can just go here and imagine if it's going to be February and I was doing my review or monthly retrospective, I can just go here and select the actual date to correct it rather than having to click multiple times if I set it to January forever. Get what I mean? So as we continue to flesh out this template, this is what we're going to build. So this is the actual template that I've already built and I'm continuously using for my own use. It has a reflection section and also an action item / idea section. We're going to build these two things right now. And let's hit back to the example here. To do these two sections, we need to first split the page. And we can do that by adding 2 columns. So click here and use the / command to see. Select 2 columns, and at first glance, nothing has changed here. But actually, when you hover your mouse, you'll see that we now have divided this page into 2 sections. So with that in mind, let's hit back here on the left-hand side. We're going to create the reflection section, and we're going to use a toggle header for this. We're going to use a slash command, type toggle. You're going to see a list of different toggle types. A normal toggle is great, but I'm using a toggle heading because this way it's going to be, first of all, big, and that's a good visual indicator to indicate that there's a big title and a big section. And the other reason is because toggles can, well, toggle on and off, and it can expand and close. So I'm going to show you here because it's more clear. When I click this button here, it's going to hide this entire section. Same thing here. And this way, when they both are hidden, it will move everything up so you can just scroll down easily without having to scroll so much. And when you need to expand, you can always click this button here and can dive deeper inside. So let's head back to our example. We've created the toggle heading here, and we're going to give it a name. Reflect on last month. And I always like to add an emoji here, a writing emoji. And one more thing we're going to do is going to add a color for the background. So we're going to click color and give this a gray background. You can choose whatever color you want. This way it's much clearer that this is now a section divider, right? We're going to expand on this toggle and start customizing the things inside of it. So we're going to add another toggle within this toggle. So slash command here. We're going to make this a toggle H2 so that it's slightly smaller than a big H1 toggle. And we're going to name this finance. So this is based on whatever categories that you have set in your yearly goals or your other goals in general. So for example, when I hit back here, I have finance, content, product, and miscellaneous. So out here as well, my yearly goals are my big goals divided by finance, content, and product. So I keep them consistent across so that I can easily interconnect those things, and this makes it easier for my brain to process, right? So let's hit back to our example. So I have a finance category here, and just like the previous toggle, we're going to change the color to green. Now we're going to pause for a bit, and what we do is going to duplicate this so that it becomes our action items and idea section. So select this whole thing and Control D. I'm going to drag this to our right-hand side column. Oops. Sometimes that happens. You can just drag it a bit higher. And then we're going to change this to action items and ideas. And let's change the emoji as well. When you expand this, obviously the finance section is already embedded inside. So for here, we're going to add a bullet list. And close that for now. We're going to hit back to our reflection section, and we're going to refine this further. So we're going to expand on this finance section here, and we're going to split this into 2 columns. So /2C. And the left-hand side is going to be what went well. And we're going to actually make this a H3, which is a smaller header than a H2. What went well. And I like to put a thumbs up. And then down here is going to be a bullet list. We can also add a bit of a divider down here. And then we're going to duplicate this. To put it on our right-hand side. Change it to thumbs down. And change the title as well. What didn't go well? Let's not forget, add a bullet list here. With this setup, we can now duplicate this finance section multiple times to set up our other categories of goals. So Control D multiple times. And I'm going to name this similar to, like what I mentioned before, the types of categories of goals I have, content and product. You can name yours according to what you have set up on your end. I also have another one for miscellaneous items. So anything that comes to mind that doesn't really fall into finance, content, and product, but I want to write about it. I want to explore it further. At least there's a section there. So now let's change the color of each of these to remain consistent. Change this one And for miscellaneous, I would give it a different color too. Let's say purple. And then let's add a bit of spacing down there, a blank space here, so it's a bit cleaner and have a bit of a gap. On the action item and ideas, we'll also do the same thing and duplicate that finance section here. So duplicate 3 more times, change this to content, change this to product, and the last one will be change to miscellaneous. Change the color of the backgrounds of each of them. So as we go through each of these items here, you can see that you can write here what went well, what didn't go well in terms to your finance goals and activities. And then you can then respond to that by creating more action items or brainstorm ideas and write it down here. And then you move on, you close this up and do the same thing for content, product, and every other category types or goal types that you have. So let's close these things up. Okay, now let's make this template a default for our database entry. Let's hit back. And then to do that, we can click this arrow button here. You see, every time we create a new entry, the default is an empty page. But what we want is to set this template as default. And it's going to ask, is it for just this view or for everything else in the monthly planning database? We're going to say for all views. So later on, once we extract this and build it into our dashboard outside or anywhere else, it's going to carry on the same setting and use this as the default template. And then we're going to do one more thing. We're going to clean this up a little bit more by selecting all these empty entries right here and just delete them for now. This is going to be cleaner this way as we build this database and test things around so we don't get confused. Now let's hit back out to create our monthly targets database. So out here, we've done our monthly planning. We're going to do the same now and add a new page. And similarly, we're going to make it a full table database and we're going to create a brand new one. Give it a title. This one we'll call it monthly targets, which is basically our monthly goal. As usual, we'll give an icon. And I already used this big target for my big goals. I'm going to use this target arrow for the monthly targets as a flat icon. And with that out of the way, let's add or customize the properties for this database. As usual, we have the default name and tag properties already selected. Let's change the name to targets or make it monthly target. And we're going to change this tag property because it's multi-select by default. So when we click edit property here, instead of multi-select, we're going to make it single select. And we're going to name this categories. And these are the different category of goals that I have throughout my entire system. So as usual, we have finance, content, product. And as usual, it's best to keep things consistent. Let's color code them as well to be the same. So finance in my system is green. Luckily, content is already red and product is already blue. So that's fine. Sorting is manual. So I can just drag this if I want finance to be on top, content in the middle. And next, we're going to add a date category. This is important so that we can sort the different monthly targets and associate them with the right months or the right dates. So add a date right here. We're also going to need an actual target to hit. So that will be in the form of a number. And let's name it target. And then similarly, we're going to need another one called progress, which is also a number-based property. Rename this to progress. Next, we're going to add a nice visual element to it. We're going to add a progress bar. To do that, we're going to add a new property, and it's going to be a formula. And let's name this progress bar. And let's edit the property itself. What we're going to do is use progress, take this property progress, and divide it by this property target. Notion can already detect the properties that we have here. We can either type progress divided by, which is slash target. Done. What we're going to do next is choose the visualization of it. Is it a bar? Is it a ring? I like to keep it as a bar. I like to keep the color green. You can customize it as well if you want. I keep this divide by 100, and show number is literally this number here next to the bar. You can toggle that on and off. I leave it on. And then because it's going to be a percentage, we're going to change this instead of number format. Number is going to be percentage. And there you go. You can see it's 0% right there as the example. So let's test this formula. Let's say I want to hit 1,000 something and the progress is only 10. And that means it's only 1% so far. If I change this to 5, that's 2.5%. If I change this to 500, that's 50%, halfway there. So cool. Looks like these progress bar and the formulas that we put in is working. And the extra thing we do here is to use a relation. And we're going to find the monthly planning. And we're just going to enable this button here so that it's a backlink so that they can see when they're linked to each other. And we're going to just click here to add that relation. Now with these bunch of properties already in place, we can now turn this into a template similar to how we did for our monthly plan just now. To do that, click this arrow icon next to the new button and then click new template. We can always rearrange the different things here, which is our properties, so that it's more convenient for us. So I would like to have the target here, and I don't mind monthly planning down here. And what we're going to do here is to give it a name, new target, let's say. And we're going to add an icon as usual to keep things consistent. Once again, I'm going to use this target arrow icon, the flat icon. And we're going to set date to today, similar to how we are doing the monthly planning as well. Again, this makes it easier for you to quickly change the month to be the closest to the month that you are currently in as you're planning things. Looks good. We just need to make this template the default template. Click this arrow icon again. By default, it's always going to be empty. So that means when I click a new, it's always going to be empty. We don't want that. So we're going to click this here, the 3 dots, and set this as default for everything in the monthly targets views. So what we're going to do is select all these, delete them, and let's test this out. We're going to click new, and it's already going to autofill the information that we've have in our template, which is great. We can already select which monthly plan we want this in. And because right now we don't have a monthly plan, we can associate that. So that's fine. Let's just fill in the other information. Let's say I want to have a new finance goal. The target is to get $1,000 maybe, and the progress is just, 10 right now. That's a 1% progress. Get $1,000, just for example, right? And let's say I'm going to create another one. Get 1,000 subscriber. Which, by the way, if you like this video so far, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon. Thanks. This is a content goal. So we're going to do this. 1,000. And let's say we only have 50 subs so far. It's just 5%. And I think we'll go with these two for now. By the way, if you want to save some time, you should check out my yearly planner and goal tracker template. It's structured in a way to help you break down your big goals into smaller monthly targets and then break those into even smaller tasks in a daily task manager. Link in the description below. Let's head back out and customize our monthly planning one more time. So let's head back here, click on monthly planning. And this time, we're going to go inside our template and add a little bit more and add the monthly targets into it. So we can click on any template and click edit. We go full page. And then down here, we can add the monthly targets to it. To keep things more flexible, let's use a linked view of that monthly target database that we created earlier. If you type linked view, select this first option here. And let's find our monthly targets and just copy this existing view. So this way we can customize the view on this page itself rather than having to go back to the database and create a bunch of views there. The original database itself will remain unchanged. There's all sorts of views in Notion, but I prefer it as a table view for this context right here. This is because I can see all the fields or the properties that I want to modify right when I'm in that zone of planning my goals, right? So it just saves me a step by not having to go into the actual monthly targets database here. So if I click this one, I don't have to go all the way in here. I can just go back and just stay in this view as I'm writing my reflections, writing my action items and ideas. I can immediately define or adjust a new monthly target or goal right here. So right now it's showing everything. That means we need to filter this so that we can see the relevant monthly target at the right time. So to do that, we can add a filter. And what we're going to do is use this date range. So remember, I told you before that the date range is going to be important to filter things out. This is the reason why. So if we imagine that, let's say we have just this one goal for 1,000 subs is for February. And what we can do is imagine I adjust this to February first. It's gone right now because by default, the filter just changed to this week, right? What we're going to do instead is change this to from start date and put it as in between, right? So we define any goals that is set from between January 1st all the way to end of January is something that we want to see in this plan. So right there is a way how we can change the filter. So I'm going to close this up by clicking this filter icon. It's going to hide the filters from the view and hit back out. Now with the main databases and templates all set up, we can start adding these things into our dashboard for ease of reference and access. For this example, as usual, I'm going to add it just like how I did in my yearly planner and goal tracker right here. These are the two sections. So referring back to my dashboard I've already done, I have a monthly planning and targets header, which is stretching across the entire page. We're going to do the same thing in our example. So /H1, but instead of just normal header, I'm going to put a toggle header. And the reason for that is, if you see back here, I have this as a template for anyone to use. So I like to put some notes or reminders there so they can easily refer to how they're going to use this section or this button right here. And if they don't need it, they can always collapse it back here. So it's remain hidden by default. I have the same thing set up here for my yearly goals. So heading back to our actual example here, let's call this monthly planning and target. As usual, we're going to change the color of the background of our header to gray. And then looking back, we have a divider, right? We have two sections here, which means we have two columns that we're going to need. So /2C for two columns. And the first thing we're going to do is add the monthly plan section on the left-hand side. We do that by linked database view. By default, it's going to be a table view, but what we're going to do is change this into a list view. So first, we're going to select the monthly planning. This is the database we created earlier. We're going to reference that and edit this view. And instead of table, we're going to change to list view, and we're going to hide the database title. We don't need that. Instead, we're going to name this Q1 plan. So in my example, I have a filter to show only 3 months worth of planning in one list view. You can organize your monthly planning however you want. This is just how I do my list. So I can also rename this and change the icon here to be this calendar icon. So that's nice and organized based on the similarities with this planning icon right here. And we're going to show only the relevant plans in this Q1, which is 3 months worth of time frame. To do that, we click filter, date, and it's going to be between January 1st and 31st March. Right now, there's nothing because we haven't created multi-plans here, but you're going to see it populating in just a second. So let's imagine we have monthly plan that we want to create. You can click this button right here. it already knows a template because we already set that by default just now. And we set this range to January because it is, of course, January. That's fine. So I'm going to put this Jan 2024. I'm going to close it right there. In fact, let's create another plan. And let's call this one the February 2024. And I'm going to change this date to February. We're also going to change this date filter here. Instead of January, we're going to change it to February 1st and until the 29th. And because we only have this goal here for February, it's now filtering to that goal. So let's head back out. And you can see, because we have this time range now for Q1, these two plans are appearing right here. Now, let's add another one just for the example and to simulate this situation. Let's say we do another one ahead and do one in April. Let's find first April here, set the date, set the title, and set this filter to change to April. There's no targets here because we haven't declared a monthly goal here. Let's just do that real quick. Let's add a new one here. Launch a product. 1, progress 0, category is product. And now that we've done our monthly planning relations, we can actually put this as April to link it and close that. And before we go any further, let's clean up this view a little bit. As you can see, if I go back to my actual template right here, my actual dashboard right here, I only have these things here. There's nothing else in my list view. So we have our dates here. Let's hide those. In fact, we can click this button here in any list view and click on properties and decide what to be shown and what not to be shown. Let's hide this so that it's cleaner. Okay. Now, if we want to show the Q2 plans, we can do the same and duplicate and call this Q2. And then we're going to customize this filter to be first ending June, going to end of June, and then it's going to start April. So between April to end of June is Q2. And as you can see, it now changed. It's now filtering to just show April because that's all we've created so far. If I jump back here to Q1, these are the two plans we have for Q1, the 2 months there. In the real world, we'll actually create 3 months worth of planning, which should be March is also here. But this is just to simulate and show you the idea of why we have 2 different toggles and views and how the filters are working in our favor to organize the different months. All right, so with that out of the way, let's create the second part here, which is adding a linked view to our monthly targets database. So I have that set up right here as Q1 targets in my yearly dashboard. So for our example, we're going to have another linked view. And we're going to select our monthly targets example. And we're going to hide this database title. We're going to make this a list view. So we're going to edit this and change it to a list. And we're going to name this Q1 target. We can also change the icon similarly like what we did in our monthly planning. To make it consistent, we use this target icon right here. You can see what's going on here. We have content, finance, and product. These are the categories that is being shown in as another column of the list. If you look back here, I'm showing progress bar instead. So let's do that. Click these 3 dots. Properties is going to be customized now. We're going to hide the category. We're going to show only the progress bar formula. And cool, we have this right now. Let's filter this out similarly to our Q2 and Q1 filter. We're going to filter out the date range, and it's going to be between 1st January and ending in 31st March. So already we had filtered out one of the goals examples that we had just now. So now if we duplicate this database and rename this to Q2 targets, you can see there's some similarities. It's very similar to what we did with our planning database. We changed this time range to 1st April, end of June, And we can already see one goal, which is associated to April, being shown here based on this filter. And you can jump between Q1 targets, Q2 targets with just clicking and selecting these two tabs right here. By the way, if you're curious about how I built this yearly goals planner dashboard, you can check out the tutorial step by step right here.